Continuing on with our match case discussion, let's talk about some things that we can match on, some ways that we would match here with our cases. So with literal patterns, we can match a simple value. So let's say we have a variable x assigned to the value of 10. We match on x. We're saying, okay, in what case, let's compare our cases to x. So in the case that x is 10, we'll execute this code. In the case that x is 20, we'll execute this code. So pretty straightforward. Let's move on to matching sequence patterns like lists or strings. We can have a variable colors assigned the value of a list that contains red and green. The strings red and green. So we're matching on that variable colors. And in the case that that variable is a list with red and blue, we'll print red and blue. In the case that it's a list with red and green, we'll print red and green. And one note, if what were to happen if this colors variable were assigned green, red, so the inverse order, it would not match any of these. It is order sensitive. Order does matter. So that's a little overview on matching things like lists in these sequence patterns. Now, here's a really interesting slide that I wanted to share with you that can add some power to our match case conditionals. We have a wildcard, this underscore that we can use that matches any value and can ignore it if we're using it in this type of situation. And then we can also bind values to a variable from our variable. So let's say we have point and it's assigned of a tuple. The tuple contains 2 and 3 in this tuple. So here with this binding, we can say, I want to grab this variable, whatever it is, I'm going to grab it. And so it's an automatic match on this variable. It doesn't matter what this value is. It's just going to grab it. And it will print out an F string saying x is, and then print out the value of x here. So it will be x is 2. And here we're using a wildcard, so it also doesn't matter what this variable is, or what this value is, rather. We're just saying, I don't care. So we're matching point. We're matching here because we're just grabbing a variable. We don't care about the match, and we're using a wildcard saying, again, we don't care about the second value in this tuple. So if we remove this wildcard and put in, let's say, the number 2, it would not match because it would be looking for a match here of 3. If we removed this x and put in the value 2, that part of the tuple would match. And if we left our wildcard here, then this condition would match and it would print. So a little bit of more useful handy tools there with our match case using wildcards and binding. Now, lastly, before we get on to some examples, let's talk a little bit more about this wildcard and how it can actually be used as a catch-all to catch all unmatched patterns, or in other words, like an else statement. So if else, else, that underscore, if that's our last one here, our last case, it will just match anything. So here and it works like default in traditional switch statements, the default case. So anything that's not explicitly matched. So we can have a value variable assigned to the string hello. We're matching on value. So if this value variable matches hi, we'll print saying hi. Otherwise, print something saying something else. So this here will match this catch-all wildcard pattern. So that's something that we can have equivalent to our else statements in our if, elif, else conditionals. Can be useful.